Mark chapter 5, verses 22 through 42. One of the Jewish synagogue leaders came forward. When he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet and pleaded with him, "My daughter is about to die. Please come and place your hands on her so that she can be healed and live," which means saved, healed, preserved, and rescued. So Jesus went with him. A swarm of people were following Jesus, crowding in on him. A woman was there who had been bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a lot under the care of many doctors and had spent everything she had without getting any better. In fact, she had gotten worse. Because she had heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his clothes. She was thinking, if I can just touch his clothes, I'll be healed, or saved, or rescued. Her bleeding stopped immediately, and she sensed that her illness had been cured. Jesus recognized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" The woman, full of fear and trembling, came forward. She fell down in front of Jesus and told him the whole truth. Jesus responded, "Daughter, your faith," meaning trust and confidence, "has healed you. Go in peace, saved from your disease." While Jesus was still speaking with her, messengers came from the synagogue leader's house, saying to the synagogue leader, "Your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher any longer?" But Jesus overheard their report and said, "Don't be afraid. Just keep trusting." Jesus went to the room where the child was. Taking her hand, Jesus said to her, "Young woman, get up." Suddenly, the young woman got up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. They were all shocked. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
I'd like to share this morning with you a story from antiquity, a story from ancient history. It's a parable of sort that is relevant for us today. A man who had lost his wife, he was a widower. He had his only child left, a young son, who he dearly loved. This man went off on a journey for a day's business. And while he was gone, bandits came to that village, killed almost everybody, and burned the whole village down, and took a few into slavery. And among those taken into slavery was the beloved son of this one man who was out of town at the time. He returns a few days later and sees the disaster of the village. Everybody's dead, everybody's gone. And he looks at the ruins of his home, and in the ruins he finds bones, burned bones, that he assumes are the bones of his beloved young son. So as he rebuilds his house, he also fashions an urn in which the remnants of his son, the bones that he presumed are from his son, he might store. And after he built his home, he would rise every day and mourn and cry all day long, holding the urn with the bones of the son he dearly loved but lost. Some weeks, even months later, his young son escapes from slavery and returns and finds his way back to his home. And it's changed a lot, but he locates the new house that his father has built. And he arrives in the middle of the night, and in the middle of the night he starts banging on the door, "Papa, Papa." The man awakes from sleep and he says, "Who's at my door?" "Papa, it's your son, it's me." "Go away, my son is dead." He goes back to sleep. The little boy pounds some more on the door. "Papa, Papa, I'm home. I've returned home. Open the door." The man thinks it's young people playing pranks on him. He says, "You're not my son. I have the bones of my son in an urn that I worship every day. Go away." And after a while, in futility, the young boy leaves, walks off into the darkness, is never seen again by his father. And each day, the father gets up and holds the urns of the ashes that he thinks are his son's, and he mourns the loss of someone who has truly not died. The parable in antiquity is given because the parable is about those of us, all of us, who hold on to the misunderstandings and illusions of life and do not hear truth knocking at the door. No, that can't be because I was taught this. No, that can't be because this is what I believe. Mark Twain, I've told you before, Mark Twain said, what gets us in trouble in life is what we know that just ain't so. Our illusions, our misinformation. And part of the journey of life, part of the journey of faith is being able to critique and reevaluate our accepted premises about life. The bones in the urn may not be of your son. Truth might be knocking at your door. There are two things I want to mention this morning specifically that I believe are urns, bones that are misunderstood in the urn of life. One is miracle, the other is salvation. They both are in this text this morning. One mentioned specifically, one inferred. Now let's talk for just a minute about miracles. In our culture, we have relegated miracles to the supernatural things of life that rarely come our way. They are that hole-in-one for the golfer. He plays all his life hoping for a hole-in-one. He may get one, he may not, but it's what inspires him, and there's something to that. But let me assure you from a biblical standpoint, miracles are alive every day in our lives if we have eyes to look for them. Miracles are the raindrops from heaven. They help nourish God's kingdom if we but have the eyes to look for and see those miracles. It's not just the extraordinary, it's the ordinary things of life that are the miracles of God. The blossoms of a flower, the breaking of the morning sun, the rain that comes down to feed the crops, the birth of a child, the good person who endeavors and lives a good life, and even the person who at their deathbed dies in assurance of God's eternal love. Those are all miracles scattered around our lives. Let us be open to the miracles that are available to us each and every day in very practical and meaningful ways. The second thing is salvation. I contend love and salvation are two of the most abused words in our culture and in our churches today. Salvation is healing and wholeness. And salvation is multidimensional. It is past, it is present, and it's also future. When the Hebrews were released from Egypt, it was past, it happened. God saw their suffering economically, politically, racially, and he delivered them from Egyptian bondage. And as they struggled through the desert, salvation was constant every day, manna dropping from heaven, a cloud guiding them along the way. And there was also salvation to come as they looked into the future in hopes of the promised land. Salvation is past, present, and future. Jesus Christ is our salvation. It happened. It was done 2,000 years ago. Christ died for the sins of the world 2,000 years ago. It is complete. There's another part of salvation yet to come. The futuristic salvation when we pass from this life and God welcomes us in the name of Christ into his kingdom. And here's the missing dimension. Salvation is today and tomorrow. The healing, the rescue, the guidance, the wholeness is for us today and tomorrow. So not only is Christ's salvation past, and not only is it future, it is also present. It is present as we stand up and receive the call of faith. Reach out and touch the garment of Christ. As we reach out with trust and participate in the miracles and the salvation for which God has for us today and tomorrow. For this church, for your lives, for my life, and even for society and the world. With people of faith, as people of faith, let us claim those miracles and that salvation.
His face